So some of my students have been asking me, what's heaven like? And that's a great question. From what I've seen on TV commercials, with a lot of lounging on clouds, playing harps, and having pillow feathers stuck to my back, maybe eating some cream cheese. To do that for all eternity would be unthinkable. It needs to be something different from that for me to be interested in being a Christian at all. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, and I want you to imagine the best family holiday celebration meal that you can remember. In North America, some of our traditional ones are Christmas and Thanksgiving. Sometimes Easter is a really big deal. And usually family gather around a table for a really delicious meal, a meal that everyone really enjoys, where special foods are prepared. Around that table, eating the food that you absolutely love and none of the food that you hate. And to the right and to the left of you are people who you know love you very much, and you love them. And you're full of this warm feeling of belonging and of satisfaction, but also this joy, this act of joy of seeing people maybe that you haven't seen in a while, interacting with people who are interested in who you are. Maybe you have different food than what my family eats. But that same core experience, that best family meal ever, and being seen and appreciated for who you are, that is heaven. What else is heaven like? When was the last time you were doing something or enjoying something so much that time just flew by while you were there, and you came out of it and you realized that where did the time go? That was so much. Maybe it was fun, maybe you describe it as fun, or maybe it was just so engaging and intriguing, and it was so alive to you that everything else fell away, including the passage of time. Some people call that being in your element, when you are doing something that is just so fascinating and so wonderful to you that everything else just kind of falls away. That is also like being in heaven, except it never stops. It will never end. We can peacefully go from activity to rest, never feel exhausted by our work or have to turn to something that's drudgery and not alive to us. That's what heaven is going to be like. One more thing that heaven's going to be like. Heaven is going to be like being wrapped up in the arms of someone who loves you. So if you imagine the person who loves you most, wrapping their arms around you, holding you close. It might be a mother, it might be a child, it might be a spouse, it might be a best friend. That embrace is what heaven is going to be like, only it will never end. Only we will never seek that embrace and have it refused. We will never be afraid of it being refused. Those are what heaven is going to be like. Isn't that a lot better than harps and feathers and lounging on a cloud? Like, if I could do what I love to do forever without growing tired and without getting frustrated, if I could sit down to a feast and gather in friendship and peace and family and belonging and just be there, like, I could never get enough of that. It's always sad when those things come to an end. The embrace of someone who loves us is the absolute best thing about being on this planet with skin on. This is what heaven is going to be like, because this is what it was like in the beginning. In the Garden of Eden, God says you can eat of any of the fruits of any of the trees, except the one that signals that you don't want to be here anymore. God also gives the first man and the first woman the job of caring for the Garden of Eden. So they have something to do. What does that look like exactly? I'm not going to tell you. I don't really know. What they did was wonderful to them. It was like one moment could have been a million years, being in their element to care for that garden. And lastly, we know that the first man and the first woman saw something of themselves in the other, and that they cleaved to one another. They became one flesh. So their embrace and their bodily presence and attentiveness to each other were also a part of that Garden of Eden. In the Bible, which begins in that Garden of Eden, but also ends in a heavenly city, which is the realization of God's original plan in the Garden of Eden. Remember those three things. Right? Remember a beautiful family meal gathered where you belong. Remember a joyous task like the work run that you get into and you never want it to end, and time seems to disappear. And remember warm embrace, an unconditional love. If you remember those moments, those are God's hints of what all of eternity, of all of heaven is going to be like for you. And if that's worthwhile, you can keep listening to God and looking into his word to see how you can experience that now and forever. My name is Ryan LeBlanc, and this is Think Catholic. Thanks for watching.